Hello all, this is John from EastCoastArmory.com, and I'm here today with a project update video for this 1/6 scale radio-controlled Armortek Late Production Tiger 1. Since the last video update, a lot of progress has been made to the tank's turret, and the majority of the tank's turret detailing and functions have been completed. We'll be going over these additions in this video. Starting with the tank's turret, you can see that all of the turret Zemret has been added. The Zemret is found on both the turret, the escape hatch, as well as the mantlet. The Zemret is applied in the exact same format as the rest of the tank's hull. And here goes the tank's gun mantlet components. Now, viewers who've been following the build series from the beginning will note that the previous builder went ahead and partially assembled these components here. The whole tank was partially assembled in order to get it up into a mocked-up state. The mantlet itself has been disassembled into its basic shapes here, and they are now waiting to get their coat of primer. Once the components are all primed, they will be reassembled and then get ready to be fitted to the vehicle. The format that you see here is basically the breakdown of all the Armortek Tiger 1 releases from the beginning all the way up to their most current release. And they break down as follows. Starting here, this massive slab of aluminum is that of the tank's rotor drum. The rotor drum then leads us to the mantlet itself. Now, the mantlet is all made out of casted aluminum. It's solid and has been CNC'd in the necessary locations in order to have a nice squared off location to mount the accessories. The mantlet does have some nice cast texturing and is properly shaped and scaled. Also, as we can see, it only has the one periscope drill out rather than the two which are found on earlier versions of the Tiger 1. In addition to the drilled out hole, it also has the integral armor bump that's molded into the mantlet casting. Moving on from the mantlet takes us to the 88mm gun armored collar sleeve. The sleeve itself is all made out of a solid piece of aluminum billet. It's got the right shape and contours and is nicely done. One feature that's newer to the Armortek Tiger kits is that of this brass bushing that we have here. The brass bushing does a great job in keeping the gun barrel nice and true, which will aid when the recoil system is added. Also supplied with the kit is that of the retention plate, which gets fitted to the mantlet here. The plate itself is all made out of CNC aluminum and is also very nicely done. To mount on the retention plate, the kit also supplies you with the correct style acorn fastener, which are used in these 6 locations here to mount the retention plate to the mantlet itself. The addition of the acorn nuts, or the acorn fasteners, is a very nice touch. In addition to the acorn fasteners, a newer addition to the Armortek kit are these photo etched brass fastener retention plates. The plates go on either side of the mounting ring, and everything gets held together with the fasteners. The plates themselves are a relatively new addition to the Armortek kits and were not supplied with the kits in the past. The Armortek kit renders the component as one continuous piece. On the real Tiger, however, this part here was comprised out of 4 identical steel plates. Those steel plates will be replicated on this build. Another important component to the mantlet are that of the mounting lugs. These lugs here bolt into the side portion of the turret and, once installed, hold the mantlet in place and let it elevate up and down. The kit supplies you with 2 lugs. Each lug is identical and it is comprised out of a single machined CNC'd steel piece. The component is very nicely done. It's got a little bit of heft to it and is very, very strong. it holds the mantlet to the turret very securely. One mod that was made to the lift lugs themselves was that of these two small little divots that we have here. These divots are found on the real Tiger 1 and were a simple addition to add to the tank via a drill. Now, the reason why this had to have been done after the installation is because of the orientation of the threads. These divots are in a set position on all Tiger 1s. If I was to drill these out before mounting them to the tank, the orientation would have had the chance of being off, which would have been unacceptable. The Tiger 1 turret featured 3 lift lugs. 2 are on either side of the mantlet, and the third is actually mounted on the rear center portion of the turret. The Armortek kit gives you a nice CNC steel lug for the lift lug detailing. However, what was not featured on the Armortek kit is the surrounding boss area that I have here. The boss that you see here is actually modified from the EastCoastArmory.com resin set. I simply took the ECA one, drilled the center hole larger for it to fit into the Armortek piece, and simply installed it. Moving on to the tank's gun barrel. The tank's gun barrel is comprised out of 2 components. You have the main barrel assembly, and you have the gun muzzle. The gun muzzle brake is made out of CNC'd aluminum, as is the gun barrel. It's a hollow tube, and it's all nicely machined with the correct tapering, as well as slots which are found on the real gun. The muzzle brake itself is also very nicely done. Unlike the earlier versions of the Armortek kits, in which there was a honeycomb type apparatus which blocked off the muzzle brake, that is not present on this generation. Also, the muzzle brake itself is that of the later style Tiger 1 tank, in that the muzzle brake is smaller than that on the earlier style or the earlier production Tiger 1s. Like I mentioned, the barrel itself is made out of CNC'd aluminum, and because of this style of construction, there are some very fine and small tooling marks which can be seen if you look at the barrels up close. This is common on Armortek tanks. It's a very simple fix. You just go up and down the barrel with some emery cloth or fine sandpaper, and it will buff the tooling marks totally smooth. If you don't want to buff down the marks are so fine that even after a couple coats of paint, they will not be present on the final build. As you could hear from going up and down the barrel, you could probably hear the fine little ridges that when my finger goes over them. After the barrel gets sanded with the emery cloth, this will no longer be present. And here is the barrel now fully completed and ready for its prime and base coat. Since the last video seen, all of the tooling marks on the muzzle as well as on the barrel itself have been buffed away with that of emery cloth and sandpaper. If we can hear when I bring my fingers across the barrel again, the zipping noise is no longer present. Also added to the barrel is that of some extra exterior detailing, namely the little wrench slits here found on the barrel extension. These slits here are added to the Armortek kit via that of the mill. They are milled directly into the aluminum barrel and have a very realistic appearance once added. In addition to the mill slots on the barrel extension, the muzzle brake itself has also received a little bit of a detail upgrade. The detailing that went into the muzzle brake was that the bore diameter was enlarged to a more accurate representation. This was done for both baffles. The wrench slits have been added to the muzzle brake face. The baffle designs were also modified. I went ahead and added the little inlets here, which on the real muzzle brake would actually help with the recoil. They were carved into the solid aluminum with that of a Dremel with a router bit, and then the tooling marks were then sanded flush. The wrench slits were also milled into the sleeve collar of the gun muzzle. and the baffle ring itself has its interior bushing detail added. The bushing detail that you see here is actually made out of resin and is a carryover from my Tiger 1 early production muzzle brake. The muzzle brakes featured the same exact components, so adding the detailing was not very difficult. The final bit of detailing that was added to the muzzle brake was that of the retention screw. On the real Tiger 1, the muzzle brake had its threads come all the way up to this portion here. The gun muzzle would then thread onto the threaded section on the barrel, and then to lock it in place, that was facilitated by this little plate here. On the top portion of the gun barrel was a small little machined slot with a hole in it. This little plate here on the real Tiger actually had a pin that went into the muzzle brake and locked onto that little section of barrel. Then it was then held in place by that of a hex bolt. With the combination of this setup as well as the fastener lock here, it prevented the muzzle brake from getting loose and possibly striking the round as it left the barrel. And here goes the tank's gun, fully completed and installed to the turret. The gun installs very simply via the Armortek design, and the Armortek instructions are very good in illustrating how to install the gun with its recoil system. In addition to the mods that were made to the barrel and the muzzle, some other revisions were also made to the barrel sleeve as well. As we can see, there's two small little slot screws on this portion here of the barrel sleeve. This is common on Tiger 1s, and Tiger 1s have 3 pairs of these slot screws. The first pair is here, the next pair is actually on the bottom portion here of the sleeve, and another pair is on the direct opposite side of the mantlet, or of the barrel sleeve, and we can see it here. Another bit of detailing that was added to the model is that of the escape hatch. The late Tiger 1, just like several versions of the Tiger 1 that preceded it, featured a large escape hatch on the loader side of the turret. The escape hatch that you see here is the kit original and was reworked in order to make it a little bit more detailed. The stock Armortek hatch was just the exterior CNC'd aluminum component that also had the hinge integral machined into the component. The inside was void of any detailing and was just a flat plate. The interior detailing that you see here was added by myself. It was modified from the EastCoastArmory.com resin Tiger 1 escape hatch. The interior portion of that hatch was casted and then was mated to the Armortek metal hatch. The way this was done was that you can't just purely rely on adhesives alone. The two different materials will not create a bond strong enough that will last over time. In order to create a long, durable bond, I went ahead and actually drilled 2 holes into the aluminum casing, and it was tapped. Then 2 Allen screws were then mounted to the piece that bolt the resin component directly to the aluminum. The fasteners then are completely deleted and are sanded flush. As you can see, there's no evidence at all of the bodywork of the fasteners. The use of the fasteners keep this component nice and durable, and you will never have to worry about the component falling off. As for the exterior portion of the hatch, it is covered with a coat of Zemrit to match that of the turret. And here goes the escape hatch mounted to the tank. The escape hatch itself is a very nice snug fit, and once in the closed position, holds it there very well. You don't have to worry about it flopping loose on you while the tank is in operation. Like I've shown before, it has all of its interior detailing, and you can get access into the tank from this location if need be. Also, one little quick detail note. As you can see, this being a late pattern Tiger 1, it features the escape hatch. However, it is missing the pistol port, which is typically found on this position here on the Tiger 1 turret. That pistol port feature is more typical on early and mid-production vehicles, however, was dropped in the later production Tiger ones like we have here. Moving our way to the top portion of the turret, we can also see that a lot of the top turret plate detailing is also completed. Starting with the crane lugs, the late production Tiger 1 had 3 lugs welded to the portion here of the turret roof. Purpose of these lugs is to hook up a hoist crane in order to have access to removal of the engine as well as other heavy lifting work. The lugs that you see here are CNC'd steel, come with the kit, and are installed out of box with no needed mods, with the exception of some weld beads detailing that I sculpted around the bottom. Moving our way to the rear portion here of the turret takes us to the close quarter defense weapon. Like all later generation German tanks, the Tiger 1 was retrofitted with that of a close quarter defense weapon in lieu of the external mounted smoke projectors which you see mounted on the turret sides in earlier incarnations of the Tiger. This unit here can fire both anti-personnel grenades as well as smoke grenades via a mortar, which is why we have this little tube here. The component that you see here is stocked with the Armortek kit and is made out of CNC'd aluminum. It's nicely done in that it fits nice and snug onto the turret roof. One modification I made to it was that I added small little slot screws that we have here. These divots are found on the Armortek kit. I simply just drilled them out and added the screws. Also, as we see here on the plate, there are mounting fastener or bosses that are around the perimeter of the grenade smoke mortar. These are found on the real tank, however are not on the Armortek kit and were a simple addition with that of a drill bit. Now, like on the rest, on a lot of my rear control German tanks, I went ahead and fitted this unit to a servo and it pivots left and right. This pivoting feature is found on the real unit and it can actually rotate 360 degrees if need be. Moving our way to the tank's loader's hatch. The loader hatch itself is supplied with the kit and is actually a detail component from armorpacks.com. The component is casted in white metal and is very super detailed, very nicely done. It features both nice exterior as well as interior detailing that you see here. The hatch that you see here is all stock Armorpacks with the exception of the spring assist lever that we have here. The stock original spring assist lever was missing on the kit and I simply fabricated a new one out of soldered steel and brass. As you can see, the hatch is also pre-painted and weathered on the interior portion, and what's interesting on German tanks is that around the hatches there is a rubber O-ring seal which prevents moisture from getting inside the tank. On the purpose of this little lever here is that due to the weight of the hatch, to help assist the crew member in opening up the hatch, there is a large spring shock absorber mounted on the inside portion of the turret. This little tube here that we have on the end makes contact with a lever that's mounted on the spring assist and makes it easier for the hatch to open and close with the crewman. Moving our way to the center portion of the turret takes us to the Air Filtration Unit. The air intake that you see here is on a different location than what is found on most Tiger 1s. On earlier renditions of the Tiger 1, this unit would have been found in generally this location right here. However, when the tank was modernized to the late specs that you see here, the air filter was moved to the center portion of the turret. As for the filter itself, it is a standard German AFV component and is found on many other German tanks, including the King Tiger as well as the Jag Panther. This component here is a new recent addition to the EastCoastArmory.com product line. The kit does supply you with this component, however, with like a few of the other components on the tank, the detail is very basic in appearance and was a simple addition to replace it with the ECA one. The component features not only its exterior, but its interior detailing as well. This would feature its ribs as well as its fasteners. The purpose of these holes that you see here on the top is to get access to the slot screw fasteners in order to remove the air filter from the inside portion of the vehicle. The whole unit that you see here is permanently welded to the top portion of the roof on real German tanks. Moving our way to the tank's commander's copula. The late production Tiger 1 is known to have a low-profile German AFV copula as opposed to the earlier style high-profile drum copula. The low-profile copulas you see here is the same unit that would be found on a King Tiger. This unit on the model is actually kit supplied, and the Armortek kit does have a very decent copula in terms of shape, size, and exterior detailing. The copula is all comprised out of CNC aluminum, as well as laser cut strips of steel for that of the Periscope Guards, and the machine gun rail. The Periscope inserts that you see here are supplied with the kit and are casted out of white metal. The hatch is fully functional in that it opens and pivots out of the way. Now, one modification made to the Armortek hatch is that of the interior detailing portion. The hatch is exterior detailing only as per the kit. The interior detailing that you see is scratch built by myself. The interior detailing would include the ring that we see here that holds up the headrests. The headrests are also scratch built and are not part of the original kit. Also modified from the kit is actually the way the hatch opens. On the stock Armortek kit, there's just a simple large hex bolt which threads into this arm here, and that allows you to open and close the hatch, almost reminiscent of the old Tamiya 116s. Rather than using the screw, which has external threads which would kind of hurt the look, I went ahead and replaced the screw with that of a steel rod. The steel rod is pinned to the arm, keeping it firmly in place. As for the interior portion, on the Tiger 1, there is a large spring-assisted system here with a crank wheel as well as a lever on the portion of the turret. The lever is used to pivot the unit closed, and then with use of the handle, you could also pivot and close the hatch in the button-up state that you see here. The entire unit is actually scratch built and is not part of the kit. As for external hatch detailing, starting with the support arm, there is a small, what appears to be a slot screw fitting. This component here is scratch built out of resin and turned on the lathe. The rest of the component itself has its cast texturing added. The cast texturing is missing on the stock kit as it's made out of CNC tooling. Moving up to the Periscope Guards. The Periscope Guards themselves are the kit supply ones but have been tweaked a little bit. The kit supply ones are a simple laser cut pre-bent piece of steel. They're nicely done, do have the proper thickness to them. On the stock piece, the component is a squared off in shape. On the real Tiger 1 copula, there's actually a small little angle here on the rear portion of all of these protection blocks. This angle was added via a bench grinder, and as you can see, guards were also added around the back portions of the Periscope Guards themselves. These plates are found on the real copulas, and on my model here, I went ahead and fabricated them out of sheet steel and were spot soldered in place. The purpose of using solder is that it gives the optimum mix of scale and that you do have a little weld bead present, and also it firmly secures the piece to the component, making it one unit. In addition to soldering the little plates behind the Periscope Guards, I went ahead and also soldered the MG34 machine gun ring to the components themselves. The Armortek piece is nice in that there are corresponding slots and tabs on the machine gun ring and on the components in which the machine gun ring clips to. Soldering the components on, again, gives a nice strong bond, but also gives a nice little detail element of a weld bead that is found on the outside portion of the ring. Also added to the copula are welds that are found on either side of the brush guard. The welds are sculpted on with my usual format, and also added was this little adjustment tab that we have here, which is soldered to the front periscope. Purpose of this tab is that it aligns the hatch when it's going to close into the closed state, like so. Another final addition that was added was a small little tube that we have on this location here. Tiger 1s seem to always have either a rod or a tube located in this location. On the earlier Tiger, I know that it's for an awning that covers up the hatch area and gives the tank commander some shade. I do also believe it might be for flags, for training, or other purposes. Moving our way to the front plate of the turret roof takes us to the loader scope. The loader scope that you see here is a common feature that is found on later production German tanks, either just Tiger 1, but also found on King Tigers as well. The component that you see here is stock for the Armortek, and the kit supplies you with this component, which is made out of a CNC piece of billet aluminum. The Armortek component is more squared off in appearance and is not as round as you see it here. The round shape was added via a belt sander, and also the component was hollowed out a little bit more on the front and rear portion than found on the kit. Now that the piece is more hollowed out, once the tank is painted, I could go ahead and install a clear plastic little lens here, which will give the illusion that the periscope has its lens detailing present. Also found on the center portion of the roof are these small little divots here that are in two cluster groups. These divots are found on all versions of the Tiger 1, and what are actually for is that these are the actual fasteners, which are for mounting equipment on the inside portion of the turret. On the exterior, you will see small little nubs in these locations here. There are 4 groups of 2 and are directly in line with the barrel. This is standard again on all Tiger 1s. Also, as we can notice, the turret plate is a little bit different than that on your earlier Tiger 1 variants. As the war progressed, it was seen that due to the threat of fighter bombers, that the turret roof was actually a weak point on the German Tiger 1. What was done was 2 thicker pieces of steel plate were actually welded to the turret roof. By doing this, the loader's hatch that you see here actually sunk into the turret roof, as opposed on the earlier tanks in which they were more elevated on top of the turret roof and had that little gutter type flange set up that you see more on earlier tanks. Also, because of this plate design, the weld pattern is slightly different. On the earlier versions of the Tiger, you're going to see 2 weld beads running this location here of the front portion of the turret roof. With the steel plate mounted over it, those weld locations are no longer present. But what is present is a single weld bead which runs along the top portion, of which the 2 steel halves were joined in place. Also not found on this model as of yet are the weld beads that run along the entire circumference of the turret. This will be added by the next video update. And that concludes this project update video for this 1/6 scale Armortek Late Production German Tiger 1. If you like this video, stop by and like us on Facebook. And don't forget to check out eastcoastarmory.com for more 1/6 scale tank builds, as well as 1/6 and 1/16 scale detail components. Thank you.